Hello, my lovelies! I'm Jeannie O, the author with no last name, and today I'm putting on my game developer hat to talk about the different types of game players. Why do people play games, and what type of systems do these different type of game players want? Hint, no one wants grind. In the 90s, when we were progressing from the first text-based multi-user dungeons to the early 2000s, where the modern MMO was revolutionized with World of Warcraft, someone named Bartle came up with a taxonomy of player types: killers, achievers, explorers, and socialites, which were motivated by acting, world, interacting, and players. In 2013, Andrzej Markowski, and I'm sure I just butchered that, expanded on the 4 player types and doubled it to 8, but he went over each in detail and broke them down more, so sometimes it felt closer to 16. Quantic Foundry, a group that studies gaming and why gamers games, put out their own group of 6 player types organized primarily by the gamer's motivations and emotions to game. Makes sense. So if you poke about on YouTube, the channel Extra Credits has done 2 videos, one about Bartles and one about balancing your MMO economy based on Bartles. Game Dev Underground has done a video about designing games using player types, and there are actually 2 videos featuring Richard Bartle himself. I definitely recommend you do as much research as possible and watch those videos. But all these player type systems can feel very confusing or too limiting, because players usually have a more than one motivation to play games. When you're developing a game, you know the types of things you like to do in a game. You might be someone who really enjoys the PvP endgame, and you want to create a hardcore loot on death PvP MMORPG with survival elements because that's the type of game you want to play. That is a very specific, very niche market catering to one singular combination type of player, and there is a reason why this very specific, in the incarnations I've seen of them, type of PvP MMO do not do well. The word you are missing in those games is cooperation. Reward cooperation. Okay, moving on. If you are making a product for other people to play, even if it's a PvP only type of game, then you have to understand you are not your only market. And you need to expand your gameplay mechanics to involve all the other different types of player types, aka different markets. And I'm not talking about the hardcore versus the quote-unquote filthy casuals. There is more than one type of hardcore player, which might boggle some people's minds. You don't have to be an all-out endgame PvP player to be a hardcore game player. Josh Strife Hayes went over this better than I ever could. I'm specifically talking about 2 different groups that will have mechanical crossovers. Yes, I'm creating my own groups based on marketing and mechanics. These are the selling points of your game. 2 different player types and systems need to be created in your game to reward the different markets from the hardcore player to baby's first game. Group 1 is the mechanical aspect of your game and has 4 types of players. And Group 2 is the social aspect of your game and also has 4 types of players. And some of these players can correspond to the 6 elements of a video game. And those are another video, hopefully next month. I say 4 types of players, so it's not like there are 8 distinct players, it's there are mechanical type plus social type equals a player type, and some players are going to want to be different social types for different mechanical things. It's not exactly cut and dry. Everything you can do mechanically can be done in different ways depending on social type. Think of it more, this is what gamers like to do, and this is how or why they like to do it. The first player type is the player almost everybody gets, the explorer. The explorer is the player who wants to have adventures in a new and exciting world. The explorers are in the game for the immersion factor. They want to be able to unlock areas, explore the map, and often these are your story and lore players who are in the game to find out what happens next. So the element of gameplay they are associated with is storytelling, because your map and your world, even if you don't have a story, should tell a story. Explorers want to be rewarded, whether it's areas specifically made for them, or things seemingly out of reach, or hidden areas. Maybe there are things to collect around the map by talking to NPCs or doing story or hidden collectible objects. The explorer type wants the fog of war, so they can feel a sense of accomplishment as they discover the map and new things. Explorers get really happy to have really varied terrain types. They don't mind side quests because that leads them to new story, new areas, and new discoveries. The explorer type is one of the harder types to satisfy because they constantly want new content in the form of new maps and new story and new lore. The good thing about explorer types is if you can give them what they want on a regular basis, be it every 4 to 6 months or even huge chunks every 2 years, they will come back and they will fling more money at your game. Explorers, if there is something to discover and enjoy, are your long-term players, and exploring is where most players will spend upwards of 95% of their time. And explorers really love a map that feels interactive or reactive. They do stuff, and things explode, fall over, glass breaks, birds fly away, maybe animals charge at them. The map feels more alive to them if they can do something and have something happen. It's immersion. If you put berries in a game, then the explorer is going to want to pick them because they can. It will make the map feel more alive. Explorers get turned off by slogging grind, or by not having anything new consistently. They also get turned off by the lack of ability to replay a game and make different choices to have a different experience. Explorers will replay your game from different points of view just to see what happens, or how it is different from what to play a game of a different character class, or with a different mount, or starting in a different area. Love your explorers and then embrace your explorers. And remember, your story explorers are just as important, if not more so, than your map explorers. Those in it for story need that story to motivate them to explore the map. Not every explorer wants to go beyond the horizon for no reason whatsoever. Don't forget to make a story trailer for your story people. Having a pretty map trailer is all well and good, but don't neglect your story explorer people. The pretty map is just the first bit to hook them, and then they want to know why they should be emotionally invested in your pretty map. The second type of player are your puzzlers. These are the people who want to solve problems or mysteries or how to play this game the most effectively and use strategy in your game. The puzzlers tend to be the game aspect of your game. Even in a fighting MMO game, there is a strategy to each different type of RPG class and how they fight monsters. Or there should be. I mean, Final Fantasy does this really well. In a card game, there will be a strategy on how to use your cards and their advantages and disadvantages, well, against other players. See Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, and Wizards 101, or even Magic the Gathering. Then there is the actual puzzle aspect of games. There are puzzle games like hidden object games, games where you need to do actions in a certain order and have a notebook nearby to write everything down, like Riven. There are pattern games, and platformer games are like puzzles. The puzzle aspect of your game is the challenge aspect of the game, and the actions the player can take to overcome those challenges. The player has to find a key by unraveling clues in the dialogue to open a door they can only see at a certain angle is an old school puzzle. Puzzlers want to be mentally engaged in your game. If there is no mental challenge to your game, they don't see the point in playing it. These are not people who like free-range creative mode. And as they play, and as they increase in levels, they want to see the gameplay change. The numbers may be increasing, but if the player who is a puzzler can't do new things, or they don't see an actual mechanical change in how their player character moves or reacts, then they'll be turned off of your game. These are the players who want to find the secrets. Like explorers, they will poke about the map, but they are poking about the map to find the secret passageways, or the stray piece of paper that has a code on it. If you have a story with branching dialogue options, they are going to play again to make different choices to see if it opens up more of the mystery of the story. Whereas an explorer will do it just to experience the different aspect of the story, the puzzler wants to know it all. The puzzlers want to see actual gameplay in your trailers. They want to know what the game is going to look like and how it will work over time. To them, anyone can create a pretty map with good-looking characters, especially in these new engines. They are more interested in what they can do in that map. How are you challenging them? The next mechanical player type is the builders. The builders want to know how they can influence the world and themselves and others around them in the game. These are the players who want to be able to build houses or towns. They want the most customization possible with their character's look and clothes and down to their statistics. They want to craft things. They want to be able to trade things either with NPCs or with other players. The builder players are the ones who are going to be the closest to coming to liking grind. They are sandbox players. Okay, I say that, but they do want a variety of methods of being able to gather things or make things. If you put in only one type of collection method of items in your game, then these types of players are going to get bored. These players like life skill systems. They love Stardew Valley types of games. Stories of Seasons is a good one. Life simulation type games. Builders don't necessarily have to have story, but story is nice. They don't need story if there's a broad range of things they can make and do with everything they can collect and build in the world. If your life skill system is limited, then yes, you need to have story. Another thing that turns off builder players are things like random failure, or systems that are designed to stack in such a way getting high-level items requires an impossible or slog-like amount of lower-level items, and is set up in such a way those lower-level items are really hard to get. They also don't like collecting things only tied to quests, so if you have fishing or something, don't tie it only to quests. Builder players will also be turned off if you take something that used to be able to build in the game and sell to others and just put it in a shop for in-game or real-life money. It doesn't make it easier on other players, it just cuts out a singular player type from the economy and they have no reason to play your game. Builders, unless it's a survival game or a simulation game, might be a player type you add in later. Builders are going to want to see if there is a life skill system, that there is a trading system in the game. They're going to want to craft exclusive items you can't get in shops. They're going to want to craft items to apply to other items like armor in order to get exclusive and special visual effects. Even having a simple die system in the game will appeal to builders. Builders also like decorating, so creating events where builders can decorate and have an impact on the game world. Creating holiday events is the last priority in a game, in my opinion. If you have a decorating aspect to your game, like player housing, you will definitely get the builder players who just want to relax and paint a digital wall. Builders can make their own fun, as long as you provide them with systems to make that fun. The last mechanical player is the griefer. Griefers are the type of players who come into a game with the full intent to exploit the system as much as possible to either break it or make it as easy to play as possible. Griefers can be positive or negative. This is honestly a type of player you don't want to cater to on the negative side. These are the types of players who are in the game to break the system any way they can and find bugs, exploits, and get beyond the walls of the map. These are the players scraping the files for spoilers. They exist, and they can make games better by holding companies to account for making buggy, incomplete, shitty games. Because big companies, if they think they can get away with it, will put out buggy, incomplete, shitty games. And by shitty, I mean really badly balanced and full of unfair and, in general, bad systems that are more likely to be parasitic than symbiotic. On the positive side, you might consider these players the hardcore players statistics-wise. They are the ones who are going to sit down and figure out the statistics of everything and how it works together and what is the fastest way between point A and point B. If you have codes hidden in your system to make the game easier, like a God mode, they will find them and they will share them. This is a time-honored gaming tradition at this point. There are the people who you want to play your game and praise your game. So if you want to attract positive exploiters, put in some fun, complex, symbiotic systems, grab some popcorn, and sit back and watch them figure it out. I mean, in a way, they can be a type of puzzler, but their motivation is completely different. Griefers are the people companies need to hire in order to quality test the game. And big companies actually do hire game testers to test their games, like before they get into the hands of the consumer. If there is a bug, or if there is a weakness, or something is overpowered, these are the players who are going to figure it out and tell you so. Loudly. So cater to the positive griefers with well thought out systems, and exploit the exploiter griefers by fixing your game. Group 2 is the social aspect of your game. Many games, some that don't need to be, try to include a multiplayer social element to the game. Not every game needs to be multiplayer. The lure behind multiplayer on the business and marketing ends is a multiplayer game that's half the advertising for itself. You can get one person into a multiplayer game, and they will invite all of their friends to play with them because games are more fun if you play them together. Sure, there is a time and a place to play solitaire or freestyle, but sometimes you want to play a huge game of hearts or slap. Games can be more fun, especially if they are built properly, to play with friends. Multiplayer games can have more challenges than, say, single-player games, because you might need a certain number of people or player types to be able to succeed at part of the game. So someone might want to play a JRPG, or Guild Wars 1 because they want to play a role-playing game but not deal with other people. And other people want the multiplayer aspect of the traditional MMO, like WoW, where you need a group of people, and they think it destroys the game if you can play it all by yourself. So the first player type in the social type is actually the antisocial type. This is the singular player loner type of person. They play games to have fun and relax by themselves. And they want to play all types of games, even MMORPGs. So if you are making an MMORPG, there needs to be systems in place for loner players to enjoy the game and be able to experience the game as much as the players who want to form big groups. Because of the rise of the MMORPG, it is very hard to find long-form single-player games anymore with the same amount of story and same types of mechanics we can find in an MMORPG. So having the more single system options in a game, even if it is an MMORPG, and we're in flux on how the MMORPG is going to change in the future as a genre, is going to grab more players. So, say 70% of your game player base is loner players. Making it so they can't experience your MMO on their own is like cutting your nose off to spite your face. Look, those 30% of social players are loud. I get it. But this is exactly like the PvEers versus the PvPers. This is where you have to look at what the players are doing inside the game and cater to the active portions, which might well be your PvE loner players. Have options. You don't have to cut the multiplayer systems, just have options for the loners to be able to experience the game. Guild Wars had henchmen and heroes, for instance. Loner players, no matter their game mechanic preferences from the previous list, are using the game to relax, and they will be lifer players as long as they can experience the game to the full extent, be rewarded for playing the game to win versus paying for the game to win, and they like it being awarded with allowances and birthday gifts and other types of loyalty programs because they are there to play the game. Paying to buy stuff in the cash shop to make the game easier has no appeal to them. They have no one to keep up with in order to see it necessary to buy their way to the top. They'll put in the time. Loners tend to be free spirits. They don't want to be restricted to schedules or other people's style of play. So if they go into a game and come up against I call it the social wall, the make a friend quest or join a group quest, and it becomes clear there is no other way forward to play the game, you're most likely going to lose that player. In a multiplayer game, I know it seems counterintuitive, but you're still going to get the players who will enjoy your world or want to do something in your world because it looks fun or pretty. And if they can't do it by themselves, or other players come in and utterly destroy them because there are no systems in place to stop this, they're going to be turned off and leave your game. 70% of the people leaving your game is not a good thing if your PvP players are reliant on your PvE players to make the goods that make it possible to do endgame PvP. Just, saying. So, the next group of players is the Socializers. Socializers have some different motivations, but they're there to interact with people, whether this is doing group content or helping other people out by actually being tour guides or being your crafter section or getting stuff to create tutorials, role playing, being influencers, or people who just want to hang out and talk in the chat. These are the players who want to cooperate with other players in gameplay. Loners can cooperate with others, they just want to do it on their own schedule and volition. They don't need to do it like a socializer does. Socializers are your extroverts. They are the people who make the multiplayer, multiplayer. Socializers, like builders, can make their own fun in the game as long as there are systems in the game for them to take advantage. Chat systems, group systems, items and areas specifically set up for role playing. Okay, there are people who want to get married in games, so it is to your benefit if your game is targeted towards adults to put in areas for role players to get married in and outfits for them to wear. I know to anyone outside of it seems weird, but it is a game want that is relatively easy to fulfill. So in a horse game or a dance game, you're going to want to create group systems so players can set up and create their own routines. For social players, what turns them off is there isn't a good functional chat system, or there are no group systems with things for the group to do, even if it's just raids and dungeons. You have to be more creative if it's not a combat game, or there are no mechanics or secrets or ways to cooperate with other players in the game. Social players want to build things together, like the city or node systems in New World and Ashes of Creation are interesting because it allows groups of players to work together to build something up in the world and have an impact on the map that doesn't require them bashing on each other. Social players will be loud. They'll be influencing other people. If you have a griefer social player, they will be going onto YouTube doing Let's Plays and tutorials and I quit this game because is it worth playing this year? They are going to be out there talking about the game, praising and ragging on it by turns, doing Switch stuff. They are the voices of the community because people will come to them with grievances, whether you like it or not. The next type of social player are your PvPers. These are the people who are there to compete. They want to compete in an environment where the challenge is they don't know how the other player plays versus going up against a monster AI. And there's the chaos element to PvP. PvP is also often associated with violence, even though it doesn't have to be. PvPers like first-person modes and battle arenas. They want factions so they can take over the map with their battles. They want guilds to form groups. And PvPers, of all the gamers I've noticed, really like seeing the big numbers go up when they do damage. They're the ones equipping the break limit in Final Fantasy so they can see how much damage they're really doing over 9999. Like in a horse or a race game, they're doing the championships up against other players. They want to pit themselves against other people. The competition is the point. And you have good PvPers and you have bad PvPers. And the good PvPers are there to challenge themselves, so they go after people of their level. The bad PvPers are trolls and bullies, and they get off on being powerful, so they go after the newbies, the people who are low level and learning, and saying things like, well, if you don't want to die, don't play a war game. If PvP doesn't have guardrails and good systems around it, it can stop being challenging and become toxic really quickly. There is some satisfaction to be had if a person, stomps a low-level player and that low-level player goes off and becomes a high-level player and then goes and kicks that person's buttocks. If your entire system is the high-level players trouncing low-level players, then you're going to drive those PvP players away. It takes a very special type of person to stand up to that type of bullying, and most game players who are there to have fun aren't going to bother. The last social player is the achievers. Achievers are motivated by being the bestest. They want to be on top. Achievement players are the players who want to be number one on the leaderboards. They want a list of challenges to do in-game with rewards for getting them. You can't get any other way. They like collecting all the items, or the high-level items to say they have them. And they want to be challenged in gameplay like a puzzler, but their motivation is different. Look, I have been guilty of this. I have reset my system so many times so I can get a certain item in my inventory that only drops from one boss, just to say I have it. Then I never use it because it's so hard to get. Are you crazy? Achievers, because they like collecting things and having things other people don't because they hope to inspire other people to be like them, they don't mind limited time offers or events or even daily log-in rewards. Their goal is, I am the best person. Don't you want to be like me? There is, of course, the positive and negative side to this type of player. There is the play-to-win scenario where if another player puts enough hours into the game, then they can become like the achiever and feel satisfaction. Whereas if you put the same items in, say, the game shop, then the achiever will feel cheated because now their items have no value in the game as someone can just buy them to get ahead. The achiever type is going to be the one who sticks with a hardcore PvP type game even if they are bullied. If their motivation is to be the best and there is no pay to win scenario here, they will grind their way to the top to make a point. The negative achiever is the type of player who does this just to lord it over everyone, and will use their higher level character in toxic ways if allowed. It's the difference between respect and fear. Some achievers want respect, and others want fear. And because it's a video game, it's easy to forget on the other side of the screen or at another keyboard is another person who has paid money to enjoy this game just as much as you have. And ruining their fun means they'll leave the game, and eventually the game will die if the only achievers in the game are negative ones. Achievers get turned off by having nothing to achieve, and having no one to show off their achievements to. Achievers are why Steam and PlayStation and other big companies put in trophies, etc., and make them public on profiles, and allow players to hover over these achievements to see how many people who play the game have them, the percentage. There were challenges in the game and I defeated them. I am awesome. People like filling out lists as much as they like seeing numbers go up. So to keep achievers, Put in the achievements. Give them tangible rewards that will help the player in the game, and like explorers, as the game expands, you're going to have to add more achievements or to reset leaderboards or create new leaderboards for new challenges, etc. As you create your game, think about your genre and the types of mechanics in your genre that will appeal to the different types of mechanical and social players. You may not specifically like a certain mechanic or see the need for it. If you want your game to have a broader market appeal, then you're going to have to cater to all the social and mechanical types one way or another, because people as gamers are often multiple player types who want to do multiple things in your game. If you sit and look at why different games are popular and have succeeded, you can break it down to the mechanics appealing to multiple player types to create a healthy player ecosystem that feeds into each other symbiotically. They help each other, and without a player type, the game will become unbalanced and fail. And most pay to win is parasitic. It might give the game development company money, but it doesn't add anything mechanically to the game or even socially to the game that helps the player ecosystem. It takes, and it doesn't give. These are my 8 types of players based upon social and gameplay marketing and mechanics and systems that feed into those types of players. Explorers, puzzlers, builders, exploiters, loners, socializers, PvPers, and achievers. Everyone wants to relax and have fun, and it's your job as a game dev to figure out how everyone can do so in your game and not limit yourself to 1 or 2 types of players. Or if your game really needs a multiplayer function at all. Some games don't need that multiplayer function, and it's okay not to include it. You still need to cater to other types of players in your game by giving multiple options of things to do and lists. I hope this list helps you understand more how player types relate to marketing and the mechanics of your game. Thanks for listening, take care, bless, and I'll see you in the next video.